check, mic check, mic check.
It's the JT the Brick Show, broadcasting live from the Philly Cadillac Performance Studio.
Raiders bring a blitz. He takes him off the middle. And he's wrapped up from behind. Max Crosby.
Your silver and black home to sound off for over 25 years. And now, here's JT the Brick.
Raider Nation, it's schedule release eve here in NFL world. Yes, the Raiders, in a little bit over 24 hours, will know who they will be playing, when they will be playing, and at what time they will be facing them. Of course, after last year only having one primetime game, how many will we get in 2025? How many of those super early games in the East Coast are the silver and black going to get? We know that historically that hasn't been great for the Raiders. We also want to find out those games against the franchises that did great last year. You look over at a Philadelphia, you look over at a Washington, you look over at a team like Houston, who was close against a team like Kansas City in the playoffs. You want to know those games when they're going to be going down. Of course, in Las Vegas, we look at that schedule, and we got the three teams we always play: Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers. The teams coming in, the Cowboys, are going to be playing at Allegiant Stadium in a regular season for the first time. And then the rest of the opponents, that's a last place schedule. Those are games that the Raiders, you look at those games and you say, we have to finish 2025 with an over 500 record, looking over at Jacksonville, Tennessee, the Giants, the Browns, and the Bears. On the road, you got some tough games, looking over at the Eagles, Washington, Houston, and of course the three divisional opponents for the Raiders, who all made it to the playoffs last year. And then you got Indianapolis and New England, which you hope you end up getting positive results out of, but it's going to be very important seeing those back-to-backs on the road. Looking over at Eastern Time Zone, the Raiders have 4 games in the Eastern Time Zone: Washington, Indianapolis, Philadelphia, and the Patriots. You're thinking, hey, there might be a possibility of having a back-to-back in consecutive weeks of those games in the Eastern Time Zone where the Raiders might want to stay out there during that week instead of coming back to Vegas with that long road trip and then having to go back. It's a possibility, but it's interestingly enough, only one Pacific Time Zone game on the road for the Raiders, the Chargers. 1 in the Mountain Time Zone, the Denver Broncos. 2 in the Central Time Zone, Houston and Kansas City, and then 4 in the Eastern Time Zone, Washington, Indianapolis, Philadelphia, and New England. That's what I'm keeping my eyes open for the release tomorrow. How many primetime games are the Raiders going to get? Last year we had one, the Monday Night Football game. If you want to call that Black Friday game against the Chiefs a primetime game, you're more than allowed to. But for me, it's not only about the national audience, but also a great time to be able to watch it, which is usually the 5 o'clock kickoff in the West Coast, which is 8 p.m. in the East Coast. Everybody's at home. It's the only game on TV at a good time. That, for me, is prime time. Last year won the Monday Night Football game against the Falcons, and even that, we were one of 2 Monday Night Football games being played simultaneously. And then how many 10 a.m. games? Last year, the Raiders had 5. 5 games at 10 a.m. If you're over here in the West Coast, that kind of sucks. I remember being a fan in the past and waking up in LA and being like, oh man, all right, let's go to the Raider bar to go watch the game. And it's like, you got breakfast burritos, breakfast tacos if you're out in Texas to go watch those games. Instead of having a burger, some tacos, something good, 10 a.m., you can't even have that. And you're barely waking up, a lot of folks, after a good Saturday night. So that's what I'm looking at right now. The primetime games, how many are we going to get? And also, how many 10 a.m. games? Raider Nation, I want to hear from you because this schedule release is going to be something very important for a lot of our brothers and sisters in the Raider Nation. The moment that it drops, a lot of flights are going to be booked. A lot of hotel rooms are going to be booked. A lot of rental cars are going to be booked with folks trying to get those travel plans all fixed up and ready to go and see where they're going to be. Also, we mentioned those East Coast games. You know that the weather ain't no joke in New England. in Foxborough. It ain't no joke in Philadelphia. It ain't no joke in D.C. Indianapolis, at least it's an indoor stadium. Kansas City, when you play out there in December, you feel it. So we're going to see, having 8 road games, how heavy is it going to be at the beginning with road games? How heavy is it going to be at the end with road games? Because you got 9 at Allegiant Stadium. 9 regular season games at Allegiant Stadium, which last year, man, I always first see the schedule and then analyze the schedule. I was like, dude, we have 8 total home games, or had 8 total home games in 2024. And 3 of them were in the last 4 weeks. Are you kidding me? They only had 5 home games in the first 14 weeks of the season. That absolutely sucked. I hope the NFL gives us a balanced schedule where it's like, all right, we know there's going to be 8 road trips, pretty much half of your schedule. Now that it's unbalanced with 17, you either have half plus 1 or half minus 1 when it comes to that balance. Hopefully the Raiders, you will never have 1 home, 1 road, 1 home, 1 road, 1 home, 1 road. There's always going to be some mixing and matching there. But last year absolutely sucked, in my opinion, when it came to having 3 home games in the last 4 weeks of the season when you had 8 home games at home, 8 home games at Allegiant Stadium in the regular season. Hopefully the NFL schedulers have us a little bit more balanced in that case. Raider Nation, I want to hear from you. What would you want this schedule to look like for the Raiders? How many primetime games do you realistically think the Silver and Black will be playing in 2025 in their first season with Pete Carroll as the head coach? In their first season with stud running back Ashton Jeanty carrying the ball? In the first season with Geno Smith under center with the Silver and Black? Hopefully, the first season where we get to see Malcolm Koonce, Max Crosby, and Christian Wilkins consistently on the field for the Raiders, wreaking havoc against the offensive line of the opponents. Let me know, Raider Nation. You know the phone line. 702-365-9200 is the number to call. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think. And, of course, we have a couple of guests today. We got Brian Fowler from All In Autumn Wind, one of my favorite content creators in the Raider Nation. He goes to every single Raiders game. I mean, you got folks like Jason Horowitz and Lincoln Kennedy. They get paid to go to those games. That's a hell of a job. Brian, he's paying to go to every single game. He lives in Southern California, so that Chargers game is always an easy trek for him. But everywhere else, he's either driving or flying to make it out to watch the Raiders. His blog is amazing. Check him out, All In Autumn Wind on YouTube. He's doing a great job also on Twitter and on Instagram. He's going to be our first guest after we come back from the first break. And then in hour number 2, we're going to kick it off with Mark McMillan, former NFL player. You hear him and see him all over the place out here in Las Vegas, doing a fantastic job as a football analyst. I bumped into him out there at Raiders rookie minicamp last Friday, and I said that guy would be a fantastic guest on the show when I'm filling in for JT, and we got him. We got him, ladies and gentlemen. Mighty Mouse will be in the house today to talk about his experience when he was a football player, when he came into the league. How did that go when you go into a building for the first time, when you go onto a playing field for the first time, coming off of a collegiate career, going into the NFL, first as a rookie in those kind of environments where you're only going against rookies, and then going against the big fellas, the veterans, the guys that are making bank all around the NFL. I want to hear from him, and we will get him in hour number 2 here on the JT the Brick Show. And we also got roster news for the Raiders. Cornerback Darian Porter out of Iowa State, the first out of 3 third-rounders that the Raiders picked in the draft a couple of weeks ago. He has signed his contract with the Raiders, the team making it official in the last hour. So now we only got 1 rookie out of the 11 that got drafted by the Raiders that still hasn't signed his rookie deal. And that is Jack Bech out of TCU. And it's interesting because with the rookies, you pretty much already have the tiers of how much money each player is going to be making depending on the slot that that player has been picked at. But you look over at the Texans and their second rounder, And now that might be changing the way that folks are going to be looking when it comes to agents trying to get deals. Because the Houston Texans and rookie wide receiver Jaden Higgins, they agreed to a fully guaranteed 4-year, $11.7 million contract. And that means that Higgins is the first second-round pick in NFL history to have a fully guaranteed contract. So that opens the door to other people being like, hey, I want my second rounder to get as much money as possible in guarantees out of his deal. And you know what? There's people that have agents, and that's fantastic because they're able to capitalize on negotiations for their players. And heck, in sports broadcasting, a lot of people have agents. I'm thinking about getting one of my own, being like, hey, go negotiate for me. Let's see what else we can do to fill up the portfolio. So these agents, they know what they're doing, and at the end of the day, you know Jack Bech is going to end up getting his contract with the Raiders. And fortunately, we were able to see him out in training camp. He spoke to the media in training camp. We've heard him here on Raider Nation Radio with his voice, including one of his quotes yesterday here on the show. The guy is focused. The guy is ready. Those rookies, they are protected when it comes to that situation. If they're present at rookie minicamp and an injury happens, knock on wood, and they're protected through the NFL, but obviously they would love to be already having their money guaranteed. So we're going to be talking about all this coming up with the schedule. We got Darian Porter signing yesterday. I spoke about the guys that the Raiders ended up signing after rookie minicamp, but I didn't mention the guys that ended up getting cut by the Raiders. And there's a couple of interesting names that were released by the Silver and Black, including 2 players that were drafted by the organization in recent years, but obviously not drafted by the current regime in front of the Silver and Black. The guys that were cut, that were formerly drafted by the Raiders: defensive tackle Matthew Butler, 5th round pick in 2022 out of the University of Tennessee; linebacker Amari Burney, 6th round pick in 2023 out of the University of Florida. And then the other players: offensive lineman Dominic Boyd, linebacker Brandon Smith, and you got a couple of wide receivers that ended up being preseason heroes for the Raiders. A couple of years ago, I know you remember Christian Wilkerson in the preseason doing a hell of a job, and then he ended up being on the roster. He's been on the team for a couple of years. Last year, Tyreek McAllister, through playing on offense and also on special teams, he earned himself a spot on the roster. Now, they are no longer on the team, and the Raiders, they ended up signing 4 undrafted rookies that we mentioned: Jafari Harvey, Keatrion Jackson Jr., Keyshawn Smith, and Wesley Steiner. 2 offensive, 2 defensive players, plus a pair of veterans when it comes to guys on the block: Jalen Smith, linebacker, former Raider, former Cowboy, former Giant. He was with the Giants when Patrick Graham was their defensive coordinator. And Jonathan Sutherland, who was also with the Seahawks in the time that Pete Carroll was on the team. So a couple of players that the Raiders had already known when it comes to the guys on the coaching staff. Patrick Graham bringing back Jalen Smith, and Jonathan Sutherland being brought into the building by Pete Carroll, who previously knew him. We got our first call of the day. We got Jackie here in Las Vegas. Jackie, what you got for me, man?
Hey,
Ma'am, sorry.
wondering, you said that Jack Bech has not signed his contract.
That's correct. He's the only rookie drafted by the Raiders that still hasn't signed his deal.
Okay, well, according to Google and according to Yahoo Sports, he did sign his 4-year contract already.
If that's the case, that would be news to me. I get all the emails from the Raiders when the deals become official, and from the rosters updates, I had Darian Porter today, 34 minutes ago, Dante Tornan Jr. 3 days ago, and then last week, Tommy Mellott, Charles Grant, Tonka Hemingway, Ashton Genty, Caleb Rogers, Cody Lindenberg, J.J. Pegues, and Cam Miller. So officially announced by the Raiders, they still haven't put pen to paper with the contract. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because it says right here that the Raiders have signed second-round wide receiver
Yeah, so
just ahead of rookie minicamp.
so that would be news for the Raiders. I mean, I that's what I was saying. Officially by the Raiders, they still haven't announced that. So thank you, Jackie, for the call. I'll check right here. Google. I always say just be careful with where you get the news, like AIs. The AIs on Grok on Twitter and what's the other one? ChatGPT. Google has AI overview. Sometimes they just get news from all over the place and they don't get it correct. So Jack, he was out there. Jack and Darian Porter, to my knowledge, and to what I was looking at with the Raiders, they still hadn't announced them ahead of rookie minicamp. And when it came to Dante Thornton Jr., they announced them like just that day, right before rookie minicamp kicked off. But Jack Bech, like I said, he's going to end up making the deal official. But you know what? It's smart on his agents. If they're trying to get as much money guaranteed on his contract after seeing what happened with that player out of the Houston Texans, I wouldn't blame him. Try to get as much money guaranteed as possible if that is what they are looking for. So Raider Nation, which trips are you trying to make? Which trips are you waiting for tomorrow's 5 p.m. date time to get the deal done? To be like, okay, Philadelphia, it's decent weather. I'm going to go out there. New England, decent weather. I'm going to go out there. And if not, if you're in Las Vegas, if you're going to stay at home, go to La Casa Cigars and Lounge and watch the games there at Tivoli Village. La Casa is a proud sponsor of the JT The Brick Show. Casa Cigar Lounge has a walk-in humidor, over 500 cigar labels to choose from. I know that my guy Cisco from the Black Hole loves going there. Let's go to a break. After it, we got Brian from All In Autumn Wind.
Regardless of what you think about Bo Nix, he had the opportunity to self-correct in games because the amount of possessions he was able to get thanks to the defense. And a nice precursor to what the Raiders could do.
Who do you feel is a better quarterback right now, Gino or?
What's up, Tremzo? I'm just hoping PSL owners don't sell their seats this year unless it's to fans on the nation. Yes, sir. Jason Craig, you know the NFL ain't going to help us out with that. Or do you think if we win some games that we can get a flex game or two on the schedule? That's always a possibility, man. I mean, the Raiders, they're a big-time brand in the league. Sorry, I hope you hear me a little bit better there. Yeah, they can definitely get flex if they are being able to get enough wins to be of the relevancy they're supposed to, of course. I gave you the numbers, right, Bobby? Yep. Right now? Yeah. I was like, I saw them when I started. I was like, oh, crap. I was like, okay, hopefully he comes. If not, I was like, you'll hear me right now when I mention the guests at a certain time. Thank you, sir.
It's going to be a Zamir White touchdown run.
Perfect. Thank you, Bobby. What up, TikTok Honeys Delights LV? Broncos at Raiders week 1. That's a possibility, 81 Raider. You saw that video the Raiders posted? Monday Night Football? I wouldn't be mad about that.
Okay, here we go.
Minshew under center, and Zeus is going to get it again, running up the middle. Zeus gets it, touchdown. Las Vegas Raiders. Zamir White pounds it up the middle for a touchdown.
So who's going to be scoring touchdowns in the preseason? Will Ashton Genty be getting carries of the rock when it comes to preseason action as a rookie? Or will they save the thread on those tires for once it actually counts in the regular season? I know my guest here in the first hour might be coming out to a preseason game in Las Vegas. I know he was out here for one of them, but he hasn't missed a regular season game for the Raiders, Brian, in the last 3 years? Brian from All In Autumn Wind on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. He's joining us here today on the JT the Brick Show. What's the streak at right now, Brian, on regular season games?
Harry, my guy, it's at 56 games in a row.
56 games in a row. That's amazing. That's great. And I hope that streak stays alive for a while. But Brian, for somebody that travels to as many games as you do, how important is tomorrow for you? Because I know a lot of people that travel to a lot of games, but to every game, I know just you. How important is tomorrow for you?
It's so exciting, so much anticipation. You know, before I started this journey, the schedule release was something that was just, it was cool. Okay, that's where we're playing, and I'll think about it in a few months. But now it's critical for, timing things with family. And, of course, the cold weather games are of a concern because I've been to really cold games before. So, yeah, it's very exciting. It's like Christmas.
Yeah, so I was talking in the first segment, what do I have right now that I'm looking for ahead of tomorrow? I'm looking at how many primetime games the Raiders are going to be playing, because last year we only had one. Some folks counted that Kansas City game. I honestly didn't. How many are you counting? Are you thinking that the Raiders might get now, Brian?
I don't think it's going to be that many because of our record. We only had 4 wins, right? So typically they don't reward you with primetime games. So maybe I'm guessing 2 or 3.
2 or 3, and you know what? The Raiders teased us yesterday on social media. They posted a video of a little pony walking in front of a desk, a lady working in that desk, and they said, Mondays, am I right? And I'm like, okay, hold on. So does that mean we're playing a Monday Night Football game against the Donkeys, against the Broncos? Is that a possibility?
That's got to be. I think the only question is that in Denver or is that in Vegas?
True. And here's the deal, though, also. And it has to be week 1, in my opinion, because you're looking at the season opener, which has been announced already. Eagles, Cowboys. That's a divisional game. You look over at the highly rumored and reported week 1 game in Sao Paulo in Brazil, which still hasn't been announced. But it seems like it's going to be Chargers, Chiefs, a divisional game. So, Raiders, Broncos, if that happens, I feel like week 1 would be great. And The Raiders last year, the schedule was so unbalanced with a lot of home games towards the end of the season. I hope we get to enjoy week 1 at home this season in the first week of September. That would be great, Brian.
You know, if it's week 1, I hope it's in Denver, because that would mean that it's not going to be cold in Denver.
And if you go to every single game, that's something very true. You look at cold weather games: Washington, Philadelphia, New England, Kansas City, Denver. I skipped it over, but that's a very cold weather game. In Indianapolis, fortunately, it's indoors, but you're enjoying the tailgates and filming and everything. You've been to Indianapolis, what, now, twice?
Twice, yeah. And in fact, you know, Indy has a game in Germany this year, and I was really hopeful that we were going to get that one as our away game to Indy, partially because going to Indy 3 times, but also, you know, I really wanted that Germany game, man. There's so many Raider fans in Germany. I think it just would have been fantastic. But
Yeah.
I'm hearing it's not us.
Yeah, that one actually has already been confirmed by the league. It's going to be Atlanta facing the Colts in Germany, in Berlin. So that one's out of the window. I actually know a lot of folks from the Wrecking Crew. They're out there enjoying Claudio's birthday. So they're out there in Germany, and they were hoping that there would be a big announcement with the Raiders involved, and that's not the case. Brazil, that one's still kind of in the books, but apparently it's going to be the Chiefs, the one facing the Chargers out there. And look, I was trying to convince myself too here on the radio yesterday. The Raiders, they've played the Colts on the road 19, 21, 23. It's going to be the 7th year in a row that the Raiders play the Cowboys. The Colts, the Indianapolis Colts. So I was like, you know what? Maybe they would be encouraged to be like, all right, we've had the Raiders a couple of times here. It's time to go bring another fan base to another place. And that doesn't seem to be the case. Out of these places, which one have you not gone to? Chargers, Denver, Houston, Kansas City, Washington, Indianapolis, Philly, and New England.
This year's a treat. There's actually 3 that I haven't been to, and that is New England Patriots, Houston Texans, and the reigning champs, the Eagles.
So you've heard about how rowdy Eagles fans get, and not in a good way. What are you expecting out of that game?
You know, yeah, I've heard that, but you hear a lot of things, and like, to be honest, I think you bring some energy into it, you know, and I'm sure the Philly fans bring a certain energy, but you come in there to a tailgate to an opposing team with the right attitude, you're not going to have problems. They don't just I'm sure it happens here and there, but they don't randomly, like, you know, it's going to be fine. I got a lot of Philly friends, actually. There's quite a few here in L.A. I've gotten to know, and that Philly sports guy, you know, the guy with the mohawk.
Yes,
paints
sir.
His face. He's fantastic, you know, so I feel all right. Honestly, I'm more worried about the cold than I am the fans. I mean, we got 8 games and 6 of them are potentially cold, you know. It's really tough. But I tell you, Harry, that Brazil game, I'm going to tell you why it was never going to be the Raiders, because, you know, I live in L.A., and I was talking to a guy that works at SoFi, and he said it's not going to be the Raiders because the stadium and the league, those games do so well in L.A. with all of the Raider fans showing up, they would never move a Raider-Chargers game somewhere else.
Yeah, and they did that. I think the Steelers are going into town, and the Eagles are going into town against the Chargers, and they haven't played there before at SoFi with the Chargers as a home team, so they protected them too, and that left the door open to having a divisional game out there in Brazil. And you know what? I thought it would have been fantastic for the Silver and Black. It's actually fantastic for any team that gets to play these kind of games because they get to expand their brand at a different country. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for the Raiders this year. Brian Fowler from All in Autumn Wind is our guest here right now on the JT the Brick Show. When you look at these home games, 9 home games, you got the Cowboys coming in. They're going to be new ones. Is there another one that catches your eye? Because with the Raiders being in 4th place last year, they're going to be hosting a handful of teams that ended up in 4th place in their divisions as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you look at the records of these teams, and they're not so hot. Very, very similar to ours. But the one I'm actually looking at is the Giants, because I just feel like, man, this Genty Saquon matchup might be really fun to watch.
Well, that's going to be the Eagles, because Saquon is over at the Eagles, but the Giants is a former team of Saquon Barkley, and you know what? They got a couple of good pieces in this offseason, and it's going to be interesting too. You're going to get Russell Wilson against Pete Carroll. which
you did a great job covering my mistake there. I'm still living in 2022. Sorry about that, Harry.
No, it's okay. Hey, he was a draft pick in 2018, and he had been with them until last year when he went over to Philadelphia, which I still feel like it was a huge mistake from the Giants letting letting Saquon Barkley go. So you're connected with all of the Raider Nation all around the country, then tens of thousands of followers and views on all social medias. Which trip has the best experience for Raider fans going in? Because you've been there before, to Denver, to Kansas City. Obviously, you live in L.A. But if you had, like, for example, if you've heard, hey, we're going to get lit in Philadelphia with all the Raider Nation that is here and the one that's coming in, or have you heard that from Houston, which I know Space City Raider Nation, they're going to be great hosts out there in H-Town. Is there a trip that you are waiting for the most because you've heard that those parties on Friday, Saturday are going to be off the hook?
I think Philly and DC are going to be crazy. DC in particular, because there are several booster clubs in that area, from Baltimore, DC, even a little further, New York, that will converge, and I think that's going to be remarkable.
Hey, East Coast.
The only thing that DC, the hard thing about DC is the stadium's so far out of town. It's a little tricky to get to. And I went to that stadium in 2017. It was remember the kneeling game?
Yeah.
When the players were kneeling, there's a whole discussion. Yeah, I was at that game. It was a very strange experience. But yeah, there's a lot of Raider fans out there, so those are going to be big.
Yeah, no, I know DJ Mike Scott. He's originally from Philadelphia. He more than likely is going to be going to that game. He used to be the president of the Black Hole Philly, and now he's out here in Las Vegas. So I know there's a lot of fans. Heck, I got on Instagram right now watching us live. Moises Inares, the play-by-play announcer in Spanish for the Washington Commanders. He's watching. He says Commanders all day. Man, I hope the Raiders are able to go out there and give a big surprise. But, man, I'm happy for you that finally this wait is going to end, because usually in May you get decent prices for September, October, November, December when it comes to flights, hotels, rental cars, and you need all of that. Now, the big question, I don't know. I saw your draft piece, which we will be talking about in a little bit. Have you made an announcement about 2025, Brian?
Oh, I have not made an announcement. And I would love to announce something here, but I'm working on something for this season that could be a little different. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to say quite yet.
Okay, you got some rights going out there, and you know what? It might be your wife, the one that's saying, "Hey, hold on a little bit. Let's wait and see." Shout out to your lady; she's amazing. I've known her for a couple of years now. Shout out to your family too. That you guys were awesome at the tailgate that I stopped by. That your family was out there as well. And heck, I met your high school football coach or middle school? What was it?
That's right. Yeah, Coach Graybell.
Yeah, you had the whole family out here in Las Vegas. So, okay, no announcement yet. We will hopefully get something soon, but the draft experience. I saw your blog. You had Roger Goodell walking right next to you in your blog. How was Green Bay for you and all the fans that were out there, the hundreds and thousands of fans?
It was amazing. I shook Goodell's hand, and I actually thought, oh no, am I going to get in trouble with Raider Nation? But the draft has become, I've gone to the last two, last year in Detroit and this year in Green Bay, and the draft for me has become this unexpected thing that now I think I really look forward to in a different way. Part of it's because it's during the off season and I just need something. But man, if you haven't been to a draft, anyone out there, if you're able to do it, I would strongly recommend it because it's such a different experience. It's incredible.
And I mean, it was awesome seeing you interact with fans from every team. And like you said, if you go with a positive mindset, everybody is friendly with you, and even friendly trash talking. You with that Seahawks fan, I really enjoyed her saying, "It's like, yeah, but how did that game go out there in Las Vegas?" It's like, come on, it was preseason, that don't count. And all that, it's friendly banter. And most fans, if you don't cross a line and you just keep it a buck, keep it 100, you're good. You're having a good time. And I love seeing that from your videos.
The interesting thing about the draft, it's unlike a game where you have two teams and two fan bases going against each other and everybody's getting all tense and serious. But, the draft experience is far more relaxed, and everybody's just there together. And even when you see like a Chargers Chiefs fan, it just, it's like everybody's there for the same reason, and they're just there to have a good time. There's not a competitive edge. It's not people getting in each other's faces, and that's what's really amazing, because you truly do see people from every single team. It's amazing.
And next year, if I recall correctly, Kansas City, and then after that, D.C. So this is a touring situation now all over the league that Las Vegas has already been a part of the rotation. I still hope they come back to Las Vegas, but instead of having it behind the link, they actually do it on the Strip. I mean, if you stop the Strip for a week with Formula One, why not do it for the NFL?
Oh, my gosh, that would be incredible. Next year's Pittsburgh. We did KC a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yes, Pittsburgh, I mean, hopefully the weather isn't bad out there. And then D.C., same case. Both locations, both great fan bases. Not as good as Raider Nation, but hopefully it's a great thing to do. Brian, please tell the folks where they can find you on social media, where they can follow all of your blogs. And look, even if you haven't seen Brian's content yet, go to week 1 of whichever season he has done out of the last 3 and be like, okay, this is the one where I want to start. And you just keep going game after game after game. And it's like living the season all over again.
So All In Autumn Wind is the channel. You can find me on YouTube. I post a lot of shorts and reels on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. So all of the socials, All In Autumn Wind. And, Harry, I can't thank you enough for everything. You were rocking my hat in one of your podcasts recently. I really appreciate it, man.
Of course, brother. Hey, you hooked me up with it. I really like the hat. You got some really cool gear. Check him out with that as well. Follow Brian Fowler, All In Autumn Wind. Anything else you would like to say to the Raider Nation, Brian?
Raiders.
There you go. That's a perfect way to close it out. Thank you to Brian Fowler. Check him out on social media. Check out his channel, All In Autumn Wind. There's a lot of people like him right now that are just literally waiting for tomorrow at 5 p.m. when the schedule drops to see, like I said, where am I going to be going in October? Where am I going to be going in November? Where is the weather as bad in December in Philadelphia? Hopefully the Raiders don't play there in December. Hopefully they play there in September. And those flights, man, they're no joke. If you're flying from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, that's a 3+ hour flight. And if it's a long flight, it's going to be a big bill. So take care of business that way. I'm going to be getting some pizza after this show. And it's going to be my favorite pizza in town, Grimaldi's. Only at Grimaldi's can you get their famous New York-style coal-fired brick oven pizza. And Grimaldi's is now serving slices on weekdays for lunch. You can check them out either at Boca Park, the Palazzo, South Rainbow, on Eastern Avenue. Their 4 locations in the Vegas Valley are fantastic. Let's go to a break, Raider Nations. Your calls after the break, 702-365-9200. You're listening to the JT the Brick Show. Tomorrow, we get the schedule. Today, we get to speculate, to guess how many primetime games we're getting, how many 10 a.m. games we're getting. Let me know what you think. 702-365-9200.
Unnecessary Roughness.
Adam Hill of Cofield & Company and also part of Las Vegas Review-Journal.
While the value was very questionable at round 1, even though they got a great player, I thought day 2 and day 3 they did a much, much better job. There's not been a bigger advocate of John Spytek than me, Q.
Yeah.
I thought what he did on day 2 and day 3 were phenomenal. I think what he's doing with building a front office has been very good. They're making a lot of moves that we haven't seen them make in the past, and I think that's where people should definitely be encouraged about this team.
Don't miss Unnecessary Roughness, weekdays at 2 on Raider Nation Radio, 920 a.m.
This is JT for the Black Hole, home of football's most notorious fans. If you're a die-hard Raider fan, this is your home. Become a member today and receive 20% off online purchases, hotel discounts for home and away games, access to members-only merchandise, and much more. All memberships are now lifetime memberships. Once a member, always a member. If you bleed silver and black, visit theblackhole.com today. That's theblackhole.com.
This is Raider Nation Radio, 920 a.m., the home of Raider Nation.
When you are injured, knowing that someone has your back changes everything. Our family has spent over 3 decades fighting and pursuing justice for the injured. It's a long family heritage that we proudly carry on.
From our father to our family to the expert legal team at DeCastro Verde, we founded this firm for you. We're the DeCastro Verde Brothers.
And we have your back.
Brotherswin.com.
Ludacris in concert.
Hands up! Get back, get back. You don't know me like that.
One explosive night of his biggest hits.
Roll out.
Saturday, June 7th at Resort Pool, Las Vegas.
But I gotta know what's your fantasy to say.
Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.
You just got hustled for a while.
The hottest shows in one year.
What you gonna
Ludacris.
do? Act a fool.
Shake your money maker like somebody about to pay you.
Hey, Luda.
Hey, it's JT here to tell you about the best pizza in Las Vegas, Grimaldi's. Only at Grimaldi's can you get their famous New York-style coal-fired brick oven pizza. Grimaldi's has 4 locations in the Vegas Valley, or check them out online at Grimaldi's Pizzeria.
A lab-grown.
There you go. What's up, Raider Nation? What's up, everybody? Damn, that lady got me checking everything. Is like, yeah, he hasn't signed. And Levi Damien posted a story about it, but I didn't see.
They probably just saw some shit online and went, it must have been signed.
Yeah, but.
They'll be calls for ship if they're going to complain about something to the first ones to call.
I know that you're aware that your relationship with Jordan Hudson has been a headline over the last few months. And all of the specifics aside, because a lot has come out in the last couple of days, how do you think that that impacts your ability to coach this football team, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, that's, really off to the side. It's a personal relationship, and she doesn't have anything to do with UNC football. I'm excited to be back in the coaches' meetings and getting ready for, June, and then August we get to training camp. So June will be a big recruiting month for us, and then August starts the big season.
And I know that you're not on social media and you don't read as much as everybody else has seen, but when it comes to having conversations with your players, have you been able to talk about any of those things and the specifics of what's going on off the field?
Yeah, no, I talk to the players, and when we meet with them, when they come in to visit and so forth, sure.
And how have those conversations gone?
Yeah, great. Well, again, we want to make the players the best that they can be, provide them the best opportunity on and off the field.
Yeah, we are.
Poor Belichick.
McFadden Industrial Hardware has the tools, parts, and supplies to power your next project. Open early and stocked with everything you need. Stop by South Decatur near Russell. McFadden Industrial Hardware. Fast, easy, and built for the pros.
Welcome back to the JT the Brick Show. Brought to you by The Black Hole. Become a member of football's most notorious fans. Back to the JT the Brick Show with today's guest host, Harry Ruiz.
The number 1 pick in the 2025 NBA draft goes to the Dallas Mavericks.
For me, I didn't try and think about it too much. I feel like it was just kind of out of my control. So I'm just kind of going through the process like everybody else and just trying to enjoy every single moment because we only get to do this once.
How about that? The Mavericks, they had less than a 2% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. And they ended up with the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Is this something that's rigged? Or is it something where it's like, hey, you know what? Unlike other sports where you get the worst record, you get the best draft pick, out here, the ping pong balls, they determine what happens. But for me, I'm like, hey, didn't they just trade Luka Doncic and the Lakers didn't give back much? Is this the league trying to be like, hey, here you go. You get the number 1 overall pick, and now you get to have Cooper Flagg next to Kyrie Irving and to Anthony Davis?
Okay, first of all, I'm not going to be the conspiracy theory guy, okay? However, I remember in 1984, I'm an old bleep, I remember in 1984 that whole frozen envelope bit, and all of a sudden the Knicks got their draft pick. And then in 1997, the Celtics were the worst team in the league. But the San Antonio Spurs, David Robinson was out hurt for the year. They ended up getting the number 1 pick. That number 1 pick was Tim Duncan. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say conspiracy. I'm not going to say that the whole thing is rigged. But they would serve to the legitimacy of the whole process if they actually did the thing live on camera instead of in some little back alley.
Exactly.
That's all I got to say on that one.
Where just you got representatives, I'm doing air quotes right now, from each team that's going to promise secrecy, and they got the NDAs. They ain't going to say nothing, but they're just there to confirm that the ping pong balls are going left and right and they come out in that right position. For me, I was looking at it's like when Anthony Davis got traded to the Lakers and then the Pelicans ended up with the number 1 overall pick. When Chris Paul was traded away to the Clippers, and then were they still the Hornets? Or was it just New Orleans? I'll say they got the number 1 overall pick. And it's like, hey, and they didn't have the best odds.
Again, I'm not going to go Mr. Conspiracy Theory, but I'll tell you this one, and I actually think this is pretty accurate. If the Raiders were an NBA team, they would never get the first-round pick. Ever, ever, ever. You could lose 82 games, and they still would find a way to make sure you came in number 5.
They got a top 5 pick. What was it, the Utah Jazz that had the best odds to get the number 1 overall pick, and they ended up with a number 5? Come on.
Yeah, every year there's something like this. It would serve to the legitimacy of the whole thing if they just did it live on camera so you could actually see what was going on. Of course, that would screw up a few of the plans, but that's the way it goes. If you want to be honest and legitimate, that is.
Exactly. You look over at this season's records, you got the Washington Wizards, 18-64. You got the Utah Jazz, 17-65, and somehow the Dallas Mavericks, who ended up with a 39-43 and played in the play-in round of the postseason, they get the number 1 overall pick. The San Antonio Spurs with a 34-48 record, who were better than New Orleans, then Utah, then Washington, then Charlotte. They ended up with the number 2 overall pick. They were also better than Philadelphia. They were also better than Brooklyn, and they got the number 2 overall pick.
See, again, I mean, I wouldn't go down this road or anything, but this is not the first time this kind of thing has happened. This is probably the 6th or 7th time.
I love it when you do it. This kind of bleep happens.
Yeah, it's the truth.
And it's the truth.
Well, my boss is 50 feet away. I can't say what I really want to say because I got a word about the NBA draft, and some of you are way too young to hear me use that kind of language.
And you know what? I don't even go usually with bleep because people know what the bleep means. So I stay away from it. But, Bobby, hey, you're an OG. You're a guy that's been in this building how many years?
Very long time.
Very long time.
But, you know, I've been doing it so long, I can actually just do it in regular conversation. You know, I don't give a bleep.
Exactly, but that was very interesting in the NBA last night when I saw the article. I was like, no way that actually happens. And we heard Cooper Flagg, the Duke product, after being a freshman and killing it in college, not being able to win the national championship, but doing a great job taking Duke deep in the NCAA tournament. Now he's going to go to Dallas. And I think, you know what, for a player like him, this is a best case scenario. Instead of going to a franchise where you're going to be the number 1 guy the day that you step into the building, right here, he's going to go and he's going to have the backup of an Anthony Davis, which you nicknamed for many years Suit, when he's available. He's going to be there with Kyrie Irving when he's available. But
if Kyrie gets healthy and he can come back. I mean, what's he, 36, 37 now?
I think he's going to turn 36 this year.
Yeah.
So this next season, sorry.
When you get in your mid-30s, you don't come back from the injuries quite so quickly.
Exactly. But I feel that that's a better situation for him, no disrespect to Salt Lake City, Utah, and the Jazz, than going to the Jazz. You go to Dallas, it's a big city, it's a big place. The fans, you know they're going to be starving for a guy to come up and step up to the plate like the way that Luka did. When Luka got drafted, they weren't expecting to get the guy that Doncic became for that franchise. And they ended up getting the player that was supposed to fill those shoes that Dirk Nowitzki left once he retired. And he took that team into the finals. Then the team traded him for pennies to the nickel. And you look over at this guy, Cooper Flagg, is like, hey, man, they're not putting all the pressure on you, but if you go deliver and perform, that fan base is going to love you.
Yeah, sure, I imagine. Who had the worst record in the league this year?
Utah, 17-65.
They should have got that kid, period.
Yeah,
no lottery,
if
no
you go to
ping
fairness,
pong balls,
yes.
none of this bull bleep, you know, No, just done. They're the worst team. They get the kid. Let's get back to work.
And what was it? People saying the NFL has a script? How about this script? That's definitely a script in the NBA. Complain about that one. Don't complain about the one in the NFL that much.
It's like complaining about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And this thing has been just so delegitimized for so many freaking years now. I mean, whatever. Who cares? Fine. Do whatever you want. You want to give it to Dallas? Give it to bleeping Dallas. Who cares?
Hey, that gives me a little bit of appreciation to the NFL when it comes to, you know what? If this team has the worst record like we were on that watch last year, the last month of the season, and it was like, damn, Raiders won this game, so they don't have the number 1 overall pick. Okay, which one are they going to have? This team has a worse record than them, so they got number 3. Last season, last game of the season, we were at Allegiant Stadium. Pre-game, I was watching the screens, and I was like, whoa, okay. Who was it? New Orleans was winning. The Jets were winning. And I was like, hey, you know what? If they win, they got one more win than the Raiders. So that means the Raiders might end up with a top 5 pick. Ended up with a top 6 pick. But you know exactly what the tiebreakers are and how the first one is the record. The NBA, it's like, go play your season, and we'll see. The ping pong balls will determine where you end up.
That's just a whole lot of bull bleep. That's just sad, to tell you the truth, really.
Yeah, and then they end up doing the
No,
spectacle.
Trust us. It's okay. It's cool. No, they really did get the first pick.
And man, they do
2 ping pong balls out of 158, but they really did. No, trust us. It's okay. Yeah.
They do a spectacle out of it with them bringing out envelopes and pulling out the logos of the teams and having representatives out there. They think that's good?
Good. Why don't you go call the guy over at Price is Right? They'll teach you how to pull the little ball machine out and put it on the stage instead of like in the back alley with like the 2 roadies.
That's what I was going to say. You know what would be better? What would be better? Putting the damn ping pong balls outside and having people literally just bang, bang.
Right,
Utah Jazz.
Because nobody's going to believe in any of this crap until they do.
Exactly.
That's just the way this world is nowadays. Nobody's going to buy into that crap unless you actually prove it. Otherwise, it's a lie.
And you know what? They're getting lucky that teams like Dallas, they're getting players that they probably wouldn't have dreamt of having, because Dallas by themselves, they got 5 teams underneath them in the Western Conference.
Okay, but what about Utah?
They had 6 teams underneath them in the Eastern Conference. That's 11 teams with a worse record than Dallas. And somehow Dallas ends up with the number 1 overall pick.
But what about Utah? Bleep them, huh?
Exactly. That's what the league is pretty much saying right now.
Yeah.
Hey, it is what it is, especially nowadays when they're trading draft picks left and right, where very few teams end up with their original draft picks. The league is like, well, all right, you don't care about draft picks that much?
You know what?
What is it? How many?
This is probably like way out of left field, but it would really make me, in my soul, feel so much better if someone would walk into the NBA office with a Jazz jersey logo shirt on, walk right into the freaking office with a baseball bat and just start swinging. Let every person play something they can get their hands on.
And going Ice Cube on them, like, and straight out of Compton.
Well,
bam, left, right.
See, I'm an old guy. I go more the Evel Knievel route. You may not know the story. There was this guy that wrote this biography about Evel Knievel. He wasn't too happy about it. He walked into the publisher's office with a baseball bat, broke the place up, smashed the guy's hands. It got way out of control. I think he did like 6 months in prison or something.
Okay, I was gonna say Ice Cube. He broke golden records and platinum records on his publisher's walls and all that stuff because they didn't give him the deal that he wanted. Yeah, hitting somebody in the hands, that's gonna take you out to jail.
Every once in a while, sometimes the extreme you have to go that far to prove a point.
And Evel Knievel was a daredevil, right? He did things his way, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Bless his heart, man. He was one of one. I'll tell you what. They don't make them like that anymore.
Exactly, and you know what? They don't make lawyers like they do them with the Castro Verde Law Group. They are the ones that treat you like family. Put your family's needs in their family's hands. 702-222-9999. Alex and Orlando de Castro Verde, man, they know how to take care of business. Brotherswin.com. When I needed a lawyer, they were my first call. Alex, he took care of business. His team took care of business, and I'm very grateful with them. De Castro Verde Law Group, 702-222-9999. We're going to go to a break. We're going to finish our number 1 with that NBA conversation. But in our number 2, we're going to come back with more silver and black talk. we got Mark McMillan, the Mighty Mouse. He's going to talk about what he saw from Raiders minicamp over at Raiders headquarters this past Friday with all the first-year players, both players drafted, players that were undrafted, invitees, international players. I was right in front of Lackey Tassi, the International Pathway Player Program signee for the Raiders, right next to Mark McMillan. And I said, dude, that's a massive human being. Pete Carroll came up next to him, and they were almost eye to eye with Lackey Tassi on one knee. I was in shock, and Mark said, yup, that's a massive human being. We'll talk about everything Raiders related after this commercial break. Hour number 1 of the JT the Brick Show today is in the books. Hour number 2 kicks off in 4 minutes.
A New York state of mind, at least in baseball, as the Mets are in the Bronx to take on the Yankees. Saturday at 1 and Sunday at 4 on ESPN Radio 1100 AM and 100.9 FM. Brought to you by Paul Patta Law. It's not about the injury, it's about the recovery.
Modelo is an official cerveza of the Las Vegas Raiders.